Yeah, first of all, how you doing? I'll do an intro in a moment here, but how are you doing through COVID and everything?
Very good. It's been, crazy like it is for everybody, but um, sometimes I feel like the last 20 years of my business, I've been in quarantine anyway. So it,
Ah,
it's not much different just to hunker down here, keep our heads low and just work. We haven't traveled very much until this year, a couple times. But the flip side was we got a lot of work accomplished in our studio.
cool.
Where are you at? Are you in Colorado? Are you in Salt Lake? Where are you at?
I'm outside of Boulder. It's called Lafayette. It's the three towns are Lafayette, Louisville, and Superior. It's where the fires were. We're about 2 miles away. The three towns are one town, really, and they're like the bedroom communities outside. Boulder has a ring of open space, hence all the cyclists. So the other two towns just got murdered. So about 2 miles away from our office, but the evacuation line was like 500 feet. So I was like, let's just go. My house here is about 4 miles from where the fires were, just literally the other side of the town. So yeah, and then we get destroyed with snow. Just horrible, man. I've been planning to do this for a long time, and I'm just so interested in sports science technology. So I'm like, you know what? I need to feel good. So I feel pretty good, but it's just like let's start playing with something new. So okay, this is Paul Marchese. He's an American. Lives, I believe you live up in New York, Albany area.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just outside of Albany.
Okay, and he's my time with speed skating. You learn that there's a lot of other people and professionals around the athletes who are helping them perform. And one aspect of an athlete's performance is the technology, and particularly the skates. And we've talked to a lot of athletes about their different types of skates and suits and the ice and going from outdoor to indoor. So Paul has a company called Marchese Racing. He's world renowned at this point. So thanks for joining me. I appreciate it, Paul. And we talked just before, but we were talking about it's a COVID year. So you've gone to most Olympic Games, I assume, in the past 20 years. Is that accurate?
I've been to quite a few. This one I won't be going to, even though China I've worked very closely with in the past, and I've been on Olympic teams with them as well.
Yep, yep.
So I'm comfortable and familiar with China, but I won't be going this time.
Okay. Um, when did you work with them? What was your role with them?
I started much like my time with the U.S. team. I started purely in a high performance technical direction, developing equipment for them, some proprietary, some not. After U.S. team in 2002, 2006, then in 2010, 2014, some of the same staff, especially the head coach, short track at that time, Chinese woman, she went back to China, and I had an offer to work there, continue working with her, so I did
She was
through.
the American coach. I can't remember her name.
Yeah, Leon, and she was a former skater herself, Olympian, medal winner, and uh, and is there now, plugged in a big way toward the games. But 2010, 2014 worked with their team.
Okay, so the host nation usually has a big bump in performance because they have this massive investment. I can't remember what Canada's term was. They had this movement to try to like win medals when you host. So this is going to be a big games for China. I mean, they've been pushing a lot of their athletic endeavors. What do you expect out of China as a whole from a performance standpoint?
I think they've had some ups and downs, turmoil in their federations, restructuring as they approach the games. This is a totally new environment for
Huh.
them to be on such a big stage. It was somewhat more hands-on with their programming with this coach Leon, who then became the director in short track. Now she's the director of both long and short track in China,
Okay.
and so they've had a few growing pains in terms of how to amass the number of athletes they want to begin with in programs and junior programs, and then gradually bring it back down into a national team or an Olympic team.
Okay.
But they're on track. They're doing quite well. We did a lot of work with them over the last 2 years. Um,
Yeah.
uh, so I think they'll be fierce. They'll be.
And when they held the summer games, I remember just how they were looking for performance for all disciplines. So I'm sure in the whole winter games, it's back in Beijing. They're looking for results. You were there, I guess. If you were there in 2010 and 14, you were there with Meng Wang, weren't you?
Yes.
Yeah, and she one of the all-time greats?
She's just she's
Is that a
a
loaded question? I don't know. Like,
she's a phenomenal athlete.
yeah,
I get lots of questions about her physical ability and as an athlete,
yeah,
and we played lots of different sports. It just how it is, just getting away from your
sure.
children or to decompress and whatnot. And it didn't matter what we did, any pickup type sport. If we played basketball, it kicked everybody's butt. If it was playing pool, if it was doing anything, she's just an extremely gifted all-around athlete.
Okay.
Um, she landed in short track and had an amazing career, but she probably could have and would have excelled at anything.
You've been skating. I was reading about how your dad is a coach, and is he still actively coaching? Is
He's not coaching anymore. My dad, he's had a very convoluted path through sports.
Okay.
He played hockey as a youth, speed skated, primarily boxed. He was a professional boxer for a number of years.
Okay.
When and I came back. I came into the sport after we had moved to New York, and a local club that was dormant had come back to life, and he hadn't been on skates in many years. And I was young, 13, 14, 15, and so that's how we got involved back into speed skating. It was all new to me. He had skated when he was a kid,
Yeah.
and we both skated and raced, and so by default he was my first coach, and coached various clubs in New York, a local level, primarily out of like Newburgh, New York, which is at one time that was one of the centers of speed skating in the country. The first world champion, many years they had the Speed Skating Hall of Fame was in Newburgh, New York, of all places.
Oh,
Uh,
cool. Where is it now?
Now it's in a lot of boxes somewhere, hidden in, stored away somewhere. I hope it. There's always rumors of it being either in Lake Placid or Milwaukee or Salt Lake. So hopefully, eventually, it resurfaces, because it was one of the things that I saw as a kid. It was on display upstairs in this in this house in Newburgh that was being run by the local Lions Club. They were like kind of
Okay.
the patron saints of like looking after the holy grail of speed skating in the country. So it was etched in my mind early on, because I saw all the memorabilia and trophies and pictures and uniforms and skates, and that made an impact on me. So it's sad that it's not out there on display somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, you grew up close. I grew up in central Massachusetts, and we would take trips to Placid and visit all the sites and hear about Eric Heiden and the 1980 Olympic team. You weren't far away from Lake Placid, and plus there's the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame up there. How come you didn't become a baseball player? I mean, you had access to all types of memorabilia.
That's true. I played a
Yeah.
little baseball when I was a kid, and then family moved around a lot, and and then landed back in New York. And at that time, I really wasn't interested in any sports. I wasn't active in anything. I think I probably ended up in skating to escape my time in school and get away from people and things. I wasn't, you know, looking for like a team sport or any of that. And so skating ended up being a great place to bury my mind and go in a different direction. I never thought I would still be here involved in it. That's for sure.
You're an athlete. I mean, you competed in the U.S. Olympic trials. You still race, and I've read about how you cycle, you skate,
Mhm.
your wife as well. Can you explain your athletic history and how it's influenced? I mean, you have an understanding that the equipment matters, but can you explain your experience in sport?
I I came up through normal path, I guess, a pretty typical path locally. Raced. I started late for this sport, meaning I didn't start to race till I was 14, 15, and by that point, I was racing against kids that had been on skates for 6, 8, or 10 years. So
Sure.
daunting in the beginning, but I guess I enjoyed this the social aspect of it and the uniqueness of the puzzle in front of me to solve. So I stayed in it, eventually clawing my way up to brief stint on the national team. I've raced lots of national championships. I've won national championships in short track and long track, and stayed in it after my chasing of an Olympic team, fell to the side. I continued to coach more. That was kind of the beginning of my coaching, and continued to race in the master ranks, and bike raced a little bit as a junior, but that always got off on the side because you didn't want to get injured prior to a skating season. So it was always off on the side until I was somewhat done with skating, and then I could bike race more. So today, still ride a lot, skate a lot. I haven't raced in a long time. And I never thought that the coaching side of things would replace the racing, the competitive side. I didn't think it would eclipse that. But in the end, now in hindsight, the coaching far outweighed anything I ever did.
Yeah, I've read you have 130 medals, Olympic medals on your skates that you've made, but you also have a couple silver US medals that you were the coach of. And I think it was Trevor and Jonathan back in the day,
Yep.
right? Are you coaching anyone right now that's at a very high level, whether it's in the US or outside?
Not at the moment. I stepped away from. I was coaching in Saratoga Winter Club,
Okay.
as like part of their elite program from 2002 to just a few years ago, and that was a stepping stone into coaching at the national level, national team level, and international level. I wanted to take a step back from that. That had kind of grown and was, the tail was wagging the dog, and so I
Yeah.
stepped and now refocused on our business with skates and technology, and have taken more a consultation approach with teams and individuals. So it's a little more part-time. We can kind of script what we want to do, where we want to do it, and how many hours are available.
Can you explain what your business is now and the role it plays in sport? Can you explain exactly what your business does and how it helps the athletes?
We build custom handmade speed skates, and that means just for racing. It means for short track. It means for long track. It means for inline wheels. They are composite, meaning they're out of carbon fiber and Kevlar and a multitude of other synthetic materials. And the designs that we have, and construction methodology that I've developed, they are more like prosthetics for your feet, probably, than like a traditional shoe or skate is. And so they are a more direct extension of your body. You have more feel on the ice, you have greater control, you have more stability, they're safer. That style that we developed now 30 years has kind of reshaped the sport. So there's any number of other skates you could buy in the world, whether they're custom made or not custom made, but they follow this style and design methodology that we have established.
What was the big miss in the sport back when you're competing? Because I can understand the boot was actually made of two separate pieces and now it's one.
That really refers to the boot in terms of the carbon fiber structures wrapped completely around your foot in one layup, and the other softer materials are integral to that layup. So it's not like even a running shoe is a separate upper and a separate sole, and they get glued together. And even in a ski boot, it's a separate outer, separate inner. They come together. And for a hockey skate or a stock speed skate, they're going to make a shell, out of plastic or
Sure.
composite. Then they're going to make this soft upper, and those two get attached. And so we don't have that. It doesn't start as two separate pieces. So
Yep.
because they're kind of integral in the construction process, they can't come apart. It can't delaminate. There's no seams. It's really a seamless wrap of your foot. So they fit like nothing else. You know, even people say, oh, they fit like gloves. I say, gloves.
Gloves are loose.
All that. You know,
was that what was missing, like that custom feel? Because we talked to Eric Heiden, and he said he didn't have custom skates. He went to the Viking showroom or whatever and opened a couple boxes and chose his favorite. And the technology's changed in 40 years, but have you enjoyed being a part of the change in the sport?
It's been fascinating. It's been great. It's I had other mentors in the beginning of my career, cross paths with people that gave me good knowledge and pushed me in different directions, because none of this existed at that time. You know, there was no speedskateconstruction.com to go onto and find the answer. It's taken a very different path from 40 years ago. Lots of directions, from skin suit technology to indoor ovals, and the skates, the blades, and the speeds are pretty absurd now compared to, 40 years ago.
When you think about technology, like whether it's injury or performance, the equipment they use is so important. You have other competitors in the market. I believe it's Bont, Viking, Maple, and there's a few others. But where does your company stand? Is it big? Is it small? Is it medium? Where does it stand in the whole market for skates?
I am one half of the staff is here right now. So I've got one other crucial employee, my wife, who works with me, and so everything start to finish is with that. I tell people that's the most expensive piece of equipment I have in the shop. I have a lot of other stuff, but
what about this?
And
your brain,
and this here too, and that's it.
But you have an athletic background, but you also have an architectural background. So you're kind of like bringing, you got great information from people, but you have legitimate, like your own experience from skating and from understanding the design of a boot or any other piece of material. How much science is going into what you do?
The science side has been difficult to find and fit, because the sport is so small. There's not a lot of leading technologies that are developed in-house in the sport. So you kind of have to look outside the sport, and you're begging and stealing bits and pieces from outside and trying to see where they fit, if they can fit here, and pick brains of people from outside the sport in different fields that maybe it looks like it fits, maybe it doesn't. A lot of trial and error. My own experience as a skater and staying in the sport and continuing to skate was an important piece to continue to test. In the beginning, I was my test pilot. And so anything I was working on had to get past me and give it a thumbs up. And then eventually working with other athletes and other countries. Other countries have different methodologies on their training, on their technical program. So they want their equipment set up differently. And that was a big aha moment in the beginning, when I thought I had solved some crucial problems and I could just copy and paste it over here. And so now I understand more than ever that the custom side, even the word custom, one off, like each individual is one off, whether it's their training program, their skates. So I try to look at each one as just a separate puzzle to solve.
The more firm, more snug, the more solid the skate, I assume, because back in the day they were leather and plastic maybe, but you're trying to put that energy from the body, the foot, into the ice. And whether it's dampening or looseness or other factors. One thing that comes up is, it sounds like the whole industry changed when getting carbon fiber involved in the skates. And where do you source your carbon fiber from? Because I've heard there's like Toray of Japan, I think. Like, is that a real challenge with like materials, especially during COVID and stuff? Like, is it hard to get materials like that, or are they like domestic? Can you get them here?
It was in the beginning of my career, it was extremely difficult to get these materials. And that was things like carbon fiber. Again, you can't go down to, Home Depot and buy carbon fiber. So I had sourced that in the beginning from a local boat boat supply, boat racing, like that up. And they would sell me small batches, meaning I could buy like a yard or two. And it was very expensive, very difficult to get. I went to trade shows in the beginning, and I made some good connections that I still use today. So 30 plus years now, I get my carbon fiber in particular from an outfit that's in Maryland. They are a custom weaver. So it literally means they buy carbon fiber as a thread. They have huge weaving looms to make all these different weights and weaves of carbon fiber, and they weave for the entire aerospace industry. So I basically buy end runs of what they're making.
Oh, wow.
Maybe Boeing wants, 5,000 yards of something, and I only want 50 yards. When they manufacture stuff, it's hard to hit 5,000 on the nose, so they make 5,100 or 5,150. And so those end runs at least supply me. But
that's perfect.
But about 10 years ago, there was a big 10, 12 years ago, there was a big switch to carbon fiber in the automotive industry in more smaller detailed projects within the aerospace industry. So there was a shortage of that material for a couple of years. And there was a lot of small businesses that went out of business because they couldn't, like you said, they couldn't buy it. It wasn't an option. And fortunately, I had this resource looking out for me and tucking stuff away on the side for me. Okay. And it kept me afloat. But from that point on, everything that we buy, everything that goes into our skates, it's all sourced here in the US. That's a point of pride for us. It's all from US manufacturers, all the raw materials. Nothing is imported, all the metals, all the machine work, all the materials, the glues, you name it, it's all here.
Can you explain what, heat moldable resins, epoxy thermosetting resins, thermoplastics, what does that mean?
When you get carbon fiber, it starts like just like the thread in your shirt. All right, so you can weave that in any number of ways to get the weight of the material for a particular application. And there's different grades of carbon fiber that are judged on its stiffness. So you can buy higher grades that are stiffer, more costly, and lower grades that are a little bit less stiff.
Oh, that number I saw, like 50s or 60s of I forget the term. Is that the strength of the carbon fiber?
It could refer to the weight. It could refer to the weight in grams, to the modulus of the carbon fiber. So it's like bending strength.
Yes. Okay.
But it doesn't have any properties that you or I would recognize until you introduce either a thermoset resin or a thermoplastic resin, and that's what binds all the carbon fiber together. So thermoset just means you're mixing 2 parts epoxy, which is what we use. It's aerospace grade material, very light, very strong. Takes a set, needs to set at a certain temperature and pressure. It's extremely strong, very light, but you can't really change its shape once it's set. So thermoset is easy to remember in that regard. It takes its original set, it's done. Whereas plastic, you mix those two together, and then with some heat, just like with orthotics or other prosthetic devices, you can introduce some heat and maybe make a change to that shape. Stock boots tend to be constructed out of thermoplastic resins and lots of other thermoplastic materials. So you have a range, a window of moldability, and our boots have a blend of both. Some parts are moldable and some parts are not.
How big is your workshop? You said it's 2 people, your wife Jen, but physical space. Is it part of your house?
For years I worked, I had rebuilt the bottom half of my house, and garage was my shop. And then almost 20 years ago, I built a studio right next to my house, which is where I'm in right now. And this is about 2,500 square feet. It's really big for 2 people, but it means I don't have to move anything in order to go do another task. Individual stations set up. It's very efficient. It's really, like you can see, it's really well lit. I am a very fortunate person to work in this environment.
I've seen online that you travel. I think you update people who might be interested in your boots, like where you might be in a normal year. And in saying that, I actually made my own boot on your website, and I took a picture of it. I'll have to bring up the picture. I didn't save it because I felt bad because you're like, we'll start working on it. I'm like, oh, no. I don't need a boot. But the first time I saw you, I think this is my first memory of you in probably '09, was we were somewhere. I don't know if it was international or somewhere, and you came in and you molded someone's feet. It might have been at a competition because you must have been with China at that point.
Yeah, it probably was. Maybe it had to be like a World Cup.
And you molded someone's foot. Can you explain the molding process?
There's lots of different ways to do it. I've played with lots. There's even some digital methods today that I think are getting close. They're not quite there yet.
Yeah.
When they get there, I'll go that direction. So we make a plaster casting of their feet. We use plaster bandages like an orthopedic might, and that creates a shell, a negative impression of your foot. When we take that back home, it's easy for us to travel and pack that away. When that dries, we can pour plaster into that, and now I have a positive copy of that person's foot. After
Sure.
which, begin to do a lot of remodeling has to happen to that foot in order to arrive at a final foot last. They would call it in shoe construction. So there's places where your foot can compress. There's places where it needs more space. And you have to accommodate that in the last. And every company has their own idea on what constitutes a perfect fit. And it's why Nike's fit different than Adidas and so on. And so I have my ideas, and other people will have their ideas on what's the perfect like performance feel. And
Do you often have athletes buying a second pair of skates, say 6 years later, and do they last that long? And then do you actually use their old molds, or do you just feel obligated to do a new one?
we keep, after we finish making that final corrected last, it looks a little like, I'll show you one. This is kind of looks like that. This is,
Wow.
it's all right. You don't see any detail of the toes, but when this is brand new, you would see that kind of detail. And you've got some other prominent areas. I mean, you're me as well as anybody. So you can see where that's all accommodated. So we'll make a copy of this before we build from it, because after we build the skate, the fit is such and the stiffness of the carbon fiber is such that we have to break and destroy that mold to get it out, lost in the process. So we make a copy and we keep that copy. So downstairs in the shop, I keep maybe the last 5 years of foot molds.
Okay.
So it looks, I tell people I have the heads and hands in the other room. It looks kind of gruesome seeing all these feet, but it's, so someone can give us a call. They can call us or email us from Europe or Asia. And if they want a backup skate, we can build it. If they want small changes, like, I want a millimeter more here, a millimeter less there, we can make those changes to this master shape.
Is it common knowledge? Like, is it out there how much a skate costs? Is that okay if I ask that? How much what is a range for these high performance custom skates that you make?
For just the boot component, you're looking at $2,500 to $3,000 for boots, and blades could be between $500 and $1,000. Blades are somewhat consumable. They wear out, they break, you crash, there's mishaps. So those might get replaced every year or 2 years, but the boots are good for, maybe we try to make them last an Olympic cycle, like 4 years, which is long in 8 years.
And since you just the year end just happened, you're going to have to get rid of a year of those molds. So I think I have a list of people I would love to buy their foot molds and put it in my shop here. That'd be awesome. There's a side business for you. We could.
I have even from 10 and 20 years ago, I have kept an even smaller like who's who list.
Oh,
and they're all world champions, Olympic champions. I should box them up and send them back to them, but I don't want to throw them out. I feel bad. There should be something I should be able to do with them, but at this point, I don't know what to do.
Oh man. Well, you let me know how much it costs, and I'd love to see the list.
You give me a name, I probably have it.
Okay. Well,